What if I told you that Ferrari, the prancing horse, the Scuderia, the brand that makes grown men cry in parking lots, unveiled their first ever electric car last week, and the internet immediately compared it to a Nissan Leaf. And then Ferrari stock dropped 8%. And then their owner, former chairman, publicly said,
Se dire quello che penso farei del male alla Ferrari. Sicuramente è una macchina che almeno I cinesi non ci copieranno. Non avranno.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Torque and Chill, and today we are talking about the Ferrari Luce, the car that somehow managed to be worth $640,000 and look like it was designed by someone who really loved the 2013 Fiat Multipla. Stick around because this video has layers. There's a roast, there's some legitimate respect, and by the end, we're going to figure out whether this thing is a genius move or the most expensive identity crisis in automotive history. Let's get into it. Okay, so the Ferrari Luce was unveiled on May 25th, 2026 in Rome. It's a majestic setting, historic city, the birthplace of Western civilization. And they pulled the cover off this? It's a 5-door liftback sedan, which is a fancy way of saying it's a hatchback, a very expensive hatchback. Some outlets are calling it a cross between a shooting brake, a wagon, and a sedan. I'm going to call it what it is, a tall boy with identity issues. The front face is basically a black void, not in a mysterious I go 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds kind of way, more in a did we forget to finish designing the front kind of way. The body is constructed as two separate pieces, a black inner shell paired with a painted outer layer, and where you'd normally expect a hood, there's just an aerodynamic wing, which sounds cool until you actually look at it and go, oh, the wheels are staggered, 23 inches fronts, 24-inch rears, which is honestly a flex. But visually, the reviewers at Auto Evolution called it too friendly, which is the most devastating thing you can say about a Ferrari. A friendly Ferrari. Fella, I don't want to be friends with my Ferrari. I wanted to terrify my neighbors and make my accountant cry. The side profile, largely devoid of aggressive haunches and shape lines we expect from Maranello. One reviewer over a Torque News said it looked like someone hit a Jaguar I-Pace with an ugly stick, which, okay, that's harsh, but also that's the vibe. It's tall, it's smooth, it's inoffensive. Ferrari literally built an inoffensive car. That is insane to me. And look, the internet didn't hold back. People compared it to the Nissan Leaf, the Fiat Multipla. BMW was already doing the car pooping out another car back with the i8. Ferrari investors were so hyped they dumped their shares immediately after the reveal. 8% in one morning. Ferrari's PR team must have had a great day. But here's where it gets interesting. Alright, so we've all had our fun, but I promised you facts as well. So let's talk about why it looks like a melted soap. Because there's an actual engineering reason, and it's not nothing. When Ferrari's head of design, Flavio Manzoni, was asked about the Luce's shape, he explained that for a traditional ICE Ferrari, the main aerodynamic objective is downforce. You're pushing the car into the road, generating grip, making it stick. But for an EV, the priority is completely flips. Now you're trying to minimize the drag, because drag kills battery range, especially at highway speeds. His words, and I quote, "The EV must be like a kind of solid object, very pure. The body side must be almost continuous, almost flat. Even the wheels must be flat." And that's exactly what they did. The Luce has the lowest drag coefficient of any car in Ferrari's history, a CD of 0.254. Very smooth surface, very flush panel, very rounded edge. It's all in service of slicing through air as efficiently as possible. Active aerodynamic grills regulate airflow in real time, constantly balancing cooling requirements against drag. Now, is 0.254 CD class leading? Honestly, not really. A Hyundai Ioniq 6 hits 0.21 CD and costs about $45,000. So Ferrari paid a lot of money to look worse and be less aerodynamic than a Hyundai. But to be fair, physics is physics. There are only so many shapes that are properly aerodynamic, and they all tend to look kind of blobby, like a melted soap. Case in point, the Ferrari Luce and the Ioniq 6. The Luce is Ferrari accepting that constraint and leaning into it. There's also a market strategy at play here. Ferrari's chief marketing officer openly stated they're targeting a new kind of driver with the Luce, someone who hasn't traditionally bought a Ferrari, and one major target, China. Ferrari has been losing ground in the Chinese market, and the Luce's GT-style 5-seat family-friendly silhouette is squarely aimed at high-net-worth Chinese buyers who want a premium EV that's also a status symbol. Hence why the ex-chairman's "China won't copy it" comment landed so hard, because ironically, China is exactly who they're designing it for. Is it cynical? Maybe. Is it smart business? Probably. Is it the Ferrari I dreamed of as a kid? Absolutely not. The Ferrari I dreamed of as a kid would not look like a 3 out of 10 from Alabama. It would look like a 10 out of 10 from the Netherlands or Sweden or at least Denmark. Okay, but here's the thing, and I say this as someone who spent the last 5 minutes dunking on this car. Under that Fiat Multipla body is some genuinely wild engineering. The Luce puts out 1,113 horsepower from 4 permanent magnet synchronous electric motors, 1 at each wheel. That's not a typo. 1 per wheel. Full torque vectoring on every corner, individually controlled. The motor spins at up to 30,000 RPM, which is a number that makes traditional engine people do a double take. 0 to 60 miles per hour in about 2.5 seconds, and 0 to 200 kilometers per hour in about 6.8 seconds, which puts it in the same neighborhood as the LaFerrari. Top speed, over 190 miles an hour. It is a car that looks like a premium minivan and moves like a rocket ship. Has a 122 kilowatts of battery pack, co-developed with the SK On, built from 210 cells. Here's the cool bit. The battery is structural, meaning it's actually part of the chassis, not just sitting inside. Ferrari also built a bespoke 880-volt platform specifically for this car. For reference, most EV runs on 400 volts. 880 volts means faster charging, better thermal management, and less energy loss. 350 kilowatts peak charging speed. If you can find a charger that can actually deliver that, you're looking at relatively quick top-ups. Ferrari claims to give 530 kilometers on the WLTP cycle. Real world on the highway realistically expect around 250 to 265 miles. Not bad for a 2,260 kilogram car, because yeah, this thing weighs over 2.5 tons, and that's about 700 kilograms heavier than a Ferrari 296 GTB. Physics is a cruel mistress. Now the weight distribution, 47 by 53, front to rear, which is actually quite good for a big sedan. It has active suspension borrowed directly from Ferrari F80. Front brake rotors at 15.4 inches, enormous. The suspension software is deeply integrated and constantly adjusting based on torque and road inputs. The interior, the Jony Ive effect. This is where it gets genuinely interesting. Ferrari partnered with Love From, the design firm founded by the former Apple chief design officer Jony Ive and Mark Newsom. And Ive did something that feels almost rebellious in 2026. He rejected touchscreens. The Luce has tactile glass buttons, physical controls, Apple Watch style crown inputs, and an infotainment panel that reviewers describe as having an iPad-like vibe, but with actual physical interaction. Gorilla Glass throughout. It reportedly looks and feels like nothing else on the market. So basically, the outside looks like Jony Ive-designed it for someone's grandma, and the inside looks like Jony Ive-designed it for someone's extremely rich and tasteful grandma who also owns 3 Apple stores. Alright, moment of truth. Is the Ferrari Luce a good buy? Starting price of 550,000 euros, roughly 640 USD, and that's the base. Options will take this well past that. US deliveries don't even start until 2027, and production is deliberately limited. So let's be honest about who's actually buying this. This is not a car for someone who wants to drive a Ferrari. It's a car for someone who wants to own a Ferrari and also needs to take the kids to school, and also wants to virtue signal about their EV while spending more money on one car than most people spend on a house. Twice. Here's my honest take. The tech is legitimately impressive. 1,113 horsepower, 1 motor per wheel, structural battery, 880 volts platform, 30,000 RPM motors, LaFerrari pace acceleration. This is serious engineering. Ferrari didn't cut corners on what's under the skin. The interior is a masterpiece by all accounts. Jony Ive doing Ferrari, that's a real thing. The inside reportedly justifies a premium price point on its own. The design is a problem, and I'm not going to walk that back. Ferrari's design team has consistently found ways to make their cars aerodynamically efficient and visually stunning. The Purosangue, the 12 cilindri, the 296, there were compromises available that didn't require making the car look like a concept study for a future Kia. And at a $640,000 USD, we prioritized aerodynamics only goes so far as an excuse. I mean, let's be serious here. Let's take the Tesla Model S, for instance, and compare the two. Let's compare the stats. I'll put them side by side. Just take a look at this. It's absolutely ridiculous. And look at the price difference. Now, the China strategy is a real gamble. Ferrari losing 8% of its stock value in the morning after reveal tells you the market isn't convinced. Whether the Luce succeeds will depend entirely on whether that new buyer they're targeting, the wealthy, tech-savvy GT buyer who's never owned a Ferrari, actually shows up. The bottom line is, if you're buying this for the badge and the specs, you'll have a blast. If you're buying it because you want a Ferrari that looks like a Ferrari, a 10 out of 10, go buy a 12 cilindri and say a little prayer for internal combustion. Is it a good buy at $640K USD? Yeah, I guess it's justifiable. Just about. The engineering is there. The exclusivity is there. The Jony Ive interior is there. But you're going to spend $640,000 on a car that your neighbor mistakes for a really nice Kia EV9? And you're going to have to explain that it actually has a 1,100 horsepower. And they're still probably going to say, yeah, sure, man. Very cool. And just go back inside and laugh at you. I mean, I feel like the logo should be bigger than the size of the car, because if you take that logo off, no one is believing that's a Ferrari. Alright, I'll leave you with this. Picture a guy, let's call him Trevor. Trevor is 54. Trevor made a lot of money in fintech. Trevor has a Tesla Model S that he never drives because his driver takes him everywhere, a Porsche Taycan that his wife drives, and a Ferrari SF90 that sits in the garage under a cover because Trevor wants to keep the miles low. Trevor has been following the Luce since October. Trevor told everyone at his golf club about the Luce. Trevor's kids made fun of him when the design dropped. Completely rational roasting there, in my opinion. And Trevor said, you don't understand design, while internally having a small crisis. Trevor is going to order the Luce in Rosso Corsa with the full Jony Ive interior package. He's going to get it in 2027. He's going to drive it to exactly 4 events, 2 car shows, 1 charity gala, and 1 airport, before it joins the SF90 under a cover in the garage. Trevor is going to tell everyone it's an investment. And maybe he's right. And honestly, good for Trevor. Alright, that's enough from me. That's the Ferrari Luce, everybody. A $640,000 EV that goes like a jet and looks like a minivan. Was designed by the guy who made the iPhone and may or may not actually save Ferrari's business in China. 2026 is wild and I'm here for it. If you made it this far into the video, smash that like button, subscribe if you haven't, and let me know in the comments, do you think the Luce is a genius move or a massive L for Ferrari? I genuinely want to know where you're landing on this one. Let's argue about it. I'll see you in the next one. Until then.
Why are you gay?